She had been watching the compound for 3 days. She still did not know what she was watching for. Captain Elena Cross lay prone in the mud, her body pressed into the earth like it was something she had been born to do. 72 hours without sleep. 72 hours without moving more than 6 inches in any direction. The ghillie suit she wore had become part of the landscape, grass and brush woven so carefully into the fabric that even her own spotter had walked past her twice during the first night without seeing her. The spotter lay 15 meters to her left. Staff Sergeant David Hayes, young, maybe 26, from somewhere in Montana, he said, though he did not talk much about home. He had steady hands and steadier eyes, and the kind of quiet competence that made you trust him even when you did not want to. This was their first mission together. She had requested him specifically after reading his file. Highest observation scores in his class. Patience that bordered on supernatural. A mind that could hold 6 variables at once and sort them faster than most men could blink. But patience only mattered if you knew what you were waiting for. The compound sat in the valley below, 800 meters from their position. A cluster of buildings that had no business being in the middle of the West Virginia mountains. Too remote for civilian use, too permanent for military. The structures were new, maybe 2 years old, built with the kind of money that did not ask for permits or worry about zoning laws. High fences, security cameras on every corner, 3 vehicles parked in a lot that could hold 20, and armed men. She had counted 4 so far. The briefing had been strange from the beginning. 96 hours ago, she had been pulled from a training rotation at Fort Benning and flown to Joint Base Andrews on a helicopter with no unit markings. The pilot had not spoken to her. The crew chief had handed her a tablet and headphones and told her to read. The briefing room had been empty except for one man, a general whose name she was not given, wearing a uniform with no insignia, no patches, nothing that would tell her what branch he served or what command he represented. He had given her coordinates, a grid reference in the Appalachian Mountains, told her to observe the location and report any activity. Do not engage without authorization. Do not reveal your position. Maintain radio silence except for scheduled check-ins every 12 hours. No context, no enemy identification, no explanation of what she was looking for or why it mattered. Just coordinates and orders. She had asked one question: what is the threat profile? The general had looked at her for a long moment before answering. Unknown. And that had been the entirety of the briefing. Hayes shifted beside her, the movement so small that only someone watching for it would notice. His voice came through the bone conduction mic clipped behind his ear, a whisper that only she could hear. Movement, north wall. Cross shifted her eye to the scope. The compound swam into focus, magnified 12 times, crystal clear despite the morning haze. A figure emerged from the main building, tactical gear head to toe, carrying what looked like a Dragunov rifle. The gait was professional, not military exactly, but trained. The way the man cleared corners and kept his weapon in a ready position spoke to experience that went beyond weekend shooting ranges. That makes 4, Hayes said. She tracked the figure as he moved to the north perimeter fence, checked something on his radio, then disappeared back inside. 4 armed personnel, all carrying long rifles, all moving with the discipline of men who had done this kind of work before. Mark the position, she said. No comms until 0600. The scheduled check-in was 3 hours away. She would wait. Waiting was what she did best. It was the thing that separated good snipers from great ones. The ability to lie still in the dirt for days at a time, watching, learning, becoming part of the landscape until the moment arrived and you took the shot and disappeared before anyone knew you had been there. Fire and vanish. That was what her instructor had taught her. Colonel Frank Bishop, a man who had spent 30 years behind a scope and had the kind of eyes that could see through walls if you gave him enough time. Bishop had trained her at the Army Marksmanship Unit 6 years ago, had taken one look at her qualification scores and said she had potential but needed to learn patience. She had been 26 then, hungry to prove herself, eager to show that she belonged among the best shooters in the military. Bishop had spent 6 months breaking that eagerness down and rebuilding it into something colder, sharper, more useful. You do not hunt the target, he had told her. You let the target come to you. You set the conditions. You make the moment. And when the moment arrives, you do not think. You execute. She had learned, and she had become very good at executing. The hours passed. The sun climbed higher, burning off the morning haze, turning the valley into a shimmering heat trap that made the air ripple and dance. She did not move. Hayes did not move. They breathed in synchronized intervals, shallow and controlled, conserving oxygen, minimizing any disturbance to the earth around them. At 0600, Hayes tried the encrypted satellite link. The small tactical radio built into his pack should have connected them to command, should have given them a secure channel to report observations and receive updated orders. Static. He tried the backup frequency. More static. He tried the emergency channel, the one reserved for catastrophic equipment failure or immediate threat to life. Nothing. Equipment malfunction? Cross asked, though she already knew the answer. Hayes checked the diagnostics display on the radio screen. All systems green, signal strength at maximum, encryption protocols active. The radio was working perfectly. They were being jammed, deliberately. She processed this information without emotion. Someone knew they were here. Someone with the equipment and expertise to block military-grade encrypted communications. Someone who wanted them isolated. The question was who and why. "We stay," she said. "If we are jammed, someone knows we are here. Moving now makes us visible." Hayes did not argue. That was one of the things she appreciated about him. He trusted her judgment even when the situation did not make sense, even when every instinct probably told him they should abort and exfiltrate while they still could. They hunkered down and continued watching. The compound showed minimal activity through the morning. One guard rotation at 0800, another at 1030. The same four men, moving in patterns that suggested professional security protocols. Overlapping fields of observation, staggered breaks, never more than two men inside at once, never fewer than two outside. At 1300 hours, a vehicle approached on the dirt access road. A black SUV with civilian plates. Expensive, the kind that cost more than most people made in a year. It stopped at the compound gate. Three men exited. Hayes had the observation scope trained on them, the high-powered optics giving him detail that Cross could not see through her rifle scope. She heard his breathing change, heard the slight intake of breath that meant he had seen something significant. "Get faces," she said. "Already on it." He activated the camera integrated into his scope, capturing high-resolution images of the three men as they walked from the vehicle to the compound entrance. She could not see their features from her angle, but she trusted Hayes to get what they needed. If they ever got communications back, if they ever made it out of these mountains, those photographs might be the only intelligence they brought back. The men entered the compound. The door closed behind them. And then Hayes went very still in a way that had nothing to do with tactical discipline and everything to do with sudden, sharp fear. "Cross," she heard it in his voice. The change, the tightness. "What?" 12 o'clock, ridge line across the valley. I have glint. Scope flash. The reflection of sunlight off glass or polished metal. The signature of someone using optics to observe the same area they were observing. Another sniper. She did not move her rifle, did not shift position. Any sudden movement would create a visual disturbance that a trained observer would catch. Instead, she used her peripheral vision, scanning the ridgeline Hayes had indicated, looking for the telltale signs. Shadow where shadow should not be. Geometry that did not match the natural terrain. Movement that was too still. There, 840 meters across the valley, a position that mirrored their own. Elevated, concealed, professional hide construction. Whoever was over there knew what they were doing. "Distance?" Hayes asked. 840. "He cannot see us clearly from there, but he knows the general area." She studied the position, the angle, the field of view. Then she began scanning the ridgeline systematically, section by section, looking for what else she might have missed. She found three more. 4 hostile sniper positions, overlapping fields of fire, interlocking coverage. This was not improvised security. This was professional overwatch. Someone had spent time and resources putting trained shooters in positions that would protect the compound from any approach, any angle, any threat. The question was, protect it from what? Or from whom? "This is not observation," Hayes said quietly. "This is overwatch. Someone is protecting that compound." "From us?" she asked. "Or from whoever else might show up?" She thought about the briefing, the general with no insignia, the coordinates with no context, the orders to observe and report but not engage. Someone had known about this compound, had known it was important enough to send a reconnaissance element, had known it was dangerous enough to send her, but they had not told her about the snipers, had not warned her that the compound had professional security, had not given her any indication that this was more than a simple surveillance mission. Either the intelligence had been incomplete or someone had deliberately withheld information. Neither possibility was comforting. Night fell. They rotated watch in 2-hour increments, one observing while the other rested. Not sleep, exactly. You could not sleep on a mission like this, but a state of controlled rest where your mind could process and your body could recover just enough to keep functioning. At 0200, Cross was on watch when she saw the muzzle flash. Not aimed at them, aimed west toward a ridgeline 200 meters from their position, where their exfiltration rally point should be, where they were supposed to rendezvous with extraction if the mission went bad. One flash, then another, then a third. Someone was shooting at their escape route. Hayes came alert instantly. She felt him tense beside her, felt the shift in his breathing as his body went from rest to full combat readiness in the space of a heartbeat. "I have it," he said. "Thermal scope active." He paused. "Cross. I have a body, still warm. Someone just hit our rally point." She processed this. They had a rally point, which meant someone had established one, which meant there had been other assets in the area, assets she had not been briefed on, assets that were now dead. Hayes was already pulling up the mission file on his encrypted tablet, the device they had been given with their orders. He searched through the documents, found a hidden file buried in the directory structure, timestamped 6 hours after their insertion. QRF element inserted, grid November Kilo 4477. Establish Overwatch rally point Echo 3. Quick reaction force. A backup element inserted after they had already been on the ground. Without telling them, without coordinating, without giving them any information that friendly forces were operating in the same area. Hayes looked at her. His face was invisible in the darkness, but she could feel the question he was not asking. "We are not the primary mission," she said. "We are bait." The words landed like stones. Bait. Sent here to draw out whoever was protecting the compound, to make them reveal themselves, to create a target for someone else to engage. She thought about the QRF team lying dead at the rally point, thought about the professional snipers in the valley, thought about the jammed communications and the general with no insignia and the orders that made no sense. Someone had set them up, and she was going to find out who. But first, she needed to survive. Hayes was doing the same as she was. If we are bait, and the bait worked, then whoever set the trap knows where we are, or knows the general area, which means those snipers are not just protecting the compound, they are hunting us. She made a decision, one that went against every instinct her training had drilled into her, one that Bishop would have called reckless and stupid, and exactly the kind of thing that got good soldiers killed. But Bishop was not here, and the rulebook had been thrown out the moment someone jammed their communications and killed their backup. "We identify who is in that compound," she said. "That is what someone wanted us to see. Once we identify them, we have leverage to break the communications jam." "How?" "We wait until morning. Use the high-resolution optics to photograph faces when they exit. Get identification on the men who arrived in the SUV. Find out who is important enough to hire 4 professional snipers. And then we figure out how to stay alive long enough to get that information out." Morning came slowly. The sun rose over the ridgeline, painting the valley in shades of gold and amber, beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with the violence waiting beneath it. Cross had been awake for 80 hours now. Her body was running on reserves she did not know she had, fueled by training and discipline and something harder to name, the knowledge that stopping meant dying. At 0630, the compound door opened. A man emerged, 50s, gray hair, expensive suit that looked completely out of place in the middle of the wilderness. He moved like someone used to being protected, used to other people clearing the path and checking the corners and making sure the world was safe before he stepped into it. Hayes had the camera scope trained on him, capturing every detail. High-resolution images that would show every line in the man's face, every distinguishing feature. Enough for facial recognition software to identify him if he was in any database. A second man emerged. Security, tactical vest, sidearm, the stance of someone who had spent years learning how to hurt people efficiently. He scanned the perimeter, checked his radio, then nodded to the first man. Then the third man stepped out, and Hayes stopped breathing. Cross felt him freeze, felt the sudden tension that ran through him like an electric current. "What?" she asked. Hayes did not answer for 3 seconds. When he did, his voice had changed, had gone flat and cold in a way she had never heard from him before. That is Yuri Volkov. She did not recognize the name. Who? Russian oligarch, arms dealer, sanctioned by the United Nations. He is on Interpol's top 50 most wanted list. And he is standing in a compound in West Virginia having a meeting with Americans. The pieces began to fall into place. Not quickly, not all at once, but in fragments, each one fitting against the next until a picture started to emerge. A picture that made her blood run cold. This was not a hostage situation. This was not a terrorist cell or a criminal enterprise or any of the things she had been trained to handle. This was a meeting, a protected meeting, between a sanctioned Russian arms dealer and unknown American assets, protected by professional snipers who had been hired to make sure nobody saw what was happening here. And she had just photographed all of their faces. Hayes was already storing the images to the encrypted drive built into his tablet. Redundant backups, multiple copies, making sure that even if they died, even if the tablet was destroyed, the information would survive in some form. Who organized this, Hayes asked. Who in the United States government is meeting with Yuri Volkov? She did not have an answer. Did not want to think about the implications, about what it meant that someone had sent them here to observe this meeting, about who had the authority to deploy the reconnaissance element without proper briefing or support, about who had the resources to jam military communications and insert QRF teams that nobody knew about who had decided that she and Hayes were expendable. The radio crackled, not their frequency, not their encryption, an open channel broadcast that anyone with a tactical radio could hear. A voice speaking English with an Eastern European accent, clear and professional and completely confident. American observers, we know you are watching. You have two choices. Leave now or join your friend at Rally Point Echo. Cross went absolutely still. Hayes went absolutely still. The only sound was the wind moving through the grass and the distant call of a bird somewhere in the valley. The enemy knew they were American, knew they were observers, knew their rally point designation. Someone had given them that information. Someone on the inside, someone who had access to classified mission details and had sold them out before the operation even began. The voice continued, "You have 30 minutes to clear the observation zone. After that, we begin hunting." The broadcast ended. Silence fell over the valley. Hayes looked at her. She looked back. 30 minutes. To pack their gear and move 8 kilometers through hostile terrain to the secondary rally point. To do it without being seen by 4 professional snipers who now knew their general location. To do it while jammed, while cut off, while marked for death by people who had the training and equipment to make that death certain. Impossible odds, but she had beaten impossible odds before. "They are bluffing," Hayes said. "They do not have our exact position. They are trying to flush us out." The gunshot interrupted him. A single suppressed round that impacted 3 feet from his position, throwing up a spray of dirt and grass. Not a kill shot, not even close. A demonstration, a message that said, "We see you, we know where you are, we can kill you whenever we want, but we are giving you a chance to run." Hayes scrambled backward reflexively, pure survival instinct, overriding training for half a second before he caught himself and went still again. Cross did not move, did not react. Her mind was already processing distance and trajectory and wind. The shot had come from the primary sniper position across the valley, 840 meters, threading around through the trees and brush to land within feet of Hayes's position. Whoever had fired that shot was very, very good. "We move," she said. "South, secondary rally point, 8 kilometers. Stay low, stay quiet, and do not stop until we are clear of the observation zone." They began the tactical withdrawal, slow, controlled, every movement calculated to minimize visual signature and sound. They left nothing behind, no equipment, no trash, no sign they had ever been there except for the compressed grass where they had lain for 3 days. The forest swallowed them, thick pine and oak, dense undergrowth, terrain that offered concealment but also slowed their movement to a crawl. They could not use trails, could not move in straight lines. Had to assume that anyone watching had thermal optics and motion detectors and every advantage that money and training could provide. An hour into the movement, Hayes spotted the thermal signature, 400 meters behind them, single individual, moving at their pace, tracking them. Cross made the call without hesitation. She doubled back, using a dry creek bed for cover, flanking the tracker's position. It took 20 minutes to get the angle she needed. 20 minutes of slow, careful movement through brush and over rock, placing every step with the kind of precision that made you invisible even when you were 10 feet away. She found him through the scope, lone sniper, professional kit, moving through the forest with the confidence of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. Hunting them. The shot was clean, 280 meters, slight upward angle, no wind to speak of. She could take him. One round, he would never know what hit him. Her finger rested on the trigger. The orders echoed in her mind. Do not engage without authorization. She had no authorization, had no communications, had no chain of command. But she had a threat tracking her through hostile territory, and she had a rifle, and she had the training to use it. Bishop's voice in her head, clear as if he were standing beside her, fire and vanish. Never let them know where you were. But Bishop had also taught her something else, something he had said during their last training session before she graduated from the marksmanship unit. You will face moments where the rules do not cover what is happening, where the orders do not make sense and the chain of command is broken and you have to make a choice. In those moments, you trust your training, you trust your judgment, and you do what keeps you alive. She took her finger off the trigger. The tracker was hunting them, but killing him would tell the other snipers exactly where she was, would bring them all down on her position, would turn this into a running gunfight she could not win. Better to evade, better to disappear, better to let him think he was closing in while she slipped away. She signaled Hayes to continue south. They moved faster now, putting distance between themselves and the tracker, using the terrain to break line of sight. 2 hours later, they reached the ridgeline, overlooking the secondary rally point. Cross brought up her scope, scanned the clearing below where the rally point should be, where another QRF team should be waiting with extraction and communications and a way out of this nightmare. She saw the graves, 4 of them, freshly dug, the earth still dark. Hayes was beside her, thermal scope active. He did not say anything for a long moment. When he did, his voice was hollow. Bodies are still warm. They were killed within the last 4 hours. Another QRF team, sent to establish a backup rally point, sent to provide extraction if the primary rally point was compromised. All of them dead, executed, left in shallow graves as a message. The radio crackled again. Same voice, same Eastern European accent. Did you find your friends? We left them for you. A message. Cross felt something cold settle in her chest. Not fear. Fear was an emotion, and emotions got you killed. This was something else. Understanding, recognition. The knowledge that this was not a mission that had gone wrong. This was a mission that had been designed to fail from the beginning. Someone had sent her here to die, had sent QRF teams to die, had orchestrated the entire operation with the goal of eliminating every witness to what was happening in that compound. And they had used her as bait to draw out the teams, used her presence to make the QRF elements reveal themselves, used her to identify targets for the enemy snipers to eliminate. She had been a tool, a weapon turned against her own people. The voice continued. Now you understand. You were never here to observe. You were here to die. But I will make you an offer. Surrender your encrypted tablet. Give us what you photographed. Walk away alive. You have 60 seconds. Hayes looked at her. His face was tight, controlled, but she could see the calculation running behind his eyes, the tactical assessment, the odds. We do not negotiate, he started to say. Get to cover, she said, now. They moved, 30 meters to a rock outcropping that would give them protection from at least 3 of the 4 known sniper positions. Hayes was still processing what was happening, still trying to fit the pieces together into something that made sense. The radio crackled a third time. Different voice, American, Southern accent, slow and easy, like someone telling a story over drinks. Captain Elena Cross, been a long time, bet you did not expect to hear me again. 60 seconds is up. Let us see if you are still as good as they said you were. She knew that voice, recognized it instantly, even though she had not heard it in 6 years, even though the man who owned that voice was supposed to be dead. Sergeant First Class Cole Mitchell, her instructor from Advanced Sniper Course at Fort Benning. The man who had taught her stalking and concealment and how to read terrain like it was a language. The man who had been dismissed for ethics violations after an investigation revealed he had been taking unauthorized shots during overseas deployments. Confirmed kills that had no paperwork, no authorization, no justification beyond his own judgment. The man who had told her during their last conversation that she would regret reporting him, that someday she would be in the field and the rules would not save her, and she would wish she had learned to think for herself. He had been reported killed in Syria 3 years ago. Convoy ambush. No body recovered. Declared dead after 6 months. He was not dead. He was here, in these mountains, hunting her. Hayes was staring at her. You know him? She nodded, could not speak for a moment. The implications were cascading too fast. Mitchell was supposed to be dead, was alive, was working for whoever had organized this operation, was part of the team protecting the Volkov meeting, which meant this went deeper than she had thought, deeper than a single corrupt official or a rogue operation. This was systematic, organized, professional, and Mitchell was the best hunter she had ever seen. Hayes, she said, we need to move. Now he is coming, and if we stay here, we die. Where do we go? The rally points are compromised. Communications are jammed. We are cut off and alone, and they know we are here. She looked at the compound in the valley below, thought about Volkov, thought about the Americans meeting with him, thought about the photographs Hayes had taken, the encrypted tablet in his pack. Leverage. That was what they needed. Information so important that someone would break the communications jam to get it. Evidence so damning that even the people who had sent them here to die would have to acknowledge it existed. We go back, she said. Hayes stared at her. Back to the compound? We circle around. Establish a position with overwatch of all 4 known sniper positions. Force them to come to us instead of hunting. And we identify every person in that compound. Get faces, get evidence, get something we can trade for our lives. That is insane. Yes, but it is the only move they will not expect. She could see him processing. See the tactical mind working through the variables, the distances, the angles, the risks. He nodded. All right, we do it your way. They moved, not away from danger, but toward it, circling back through terrain they had already covered, using the forest and the elevation to mask their approach. It took 4 hours. 4 hours of slow, careful movement. 4 hours of checking every shadow, every sound, every indication that Mitchell was close. They found the position as the sun was setting, an elevated rocky outcrop with 360-degree visibility, 680 meters from the compound. Clear lines of sight to all 4 known sniper positions. Defensible, concealable, perfect. Too perfect. Mitchell would know about this position, would expect someone to use it eventually. But that was fine, because Cross was counting on it. They set up, Hayes on observation, Cross on the rifle, and they waited as darkness fell over the valley and the compound lights came on, and the men inside continued their meeting as if 16 Americans had not died to protect their secrecy. 6 hours passed. Midnight came and went. Nothing moved except the wind and the distant shapes of guards rotating their patrol. At a 100 movement, Mitchell's silhouette, 520 meters downslope, following the trail they had left earlier, tracking them with the same methodical precision she remembered from training. She put the crosshairs on him. Perfect shot. Center mass. No wind, no obstacles. Her finger rested on the trigger. Mitchell stopped, looked up, looked directly at their position, even though she knew he could not see them. Could not possibly have spotted them in the darkness with the concealment they had constructed. But he knew, she could feel it. He knew exactly where they were. The radio crackled. His voice, quiet, almost gentle. Cross, I know you are out there, been waiting 6 years for this. Fire and vanish, right? That is what Bishop taught us. You fire, I am still here, so who is better? She did not answer, did not move, kept the crosshairs steady on his chest. Prove you have me, he said. She keyed the radio. You are 520 meters southwest of my position, behind the fallen oak, wearing Cry Precision multicam, carrying an SR-25. Your right shoulder is exposed by 4 inches because you favor left side cover. Want me to prove it with a bullet? Silence. Then a laugh. You are always good. But here's the problem, Cross. You think I am alone. I am not. 3 suppressed gunshots. Simultaneous. Impacting the rocks around their position from 3 different directions. Not kill shots. Warning shots. Demonstrating that she had miscounted. That there were not 4 sniper positions. There were 8. And she had just revealed her location to all of them. 3 suppressed gunshots. 3 different directions. The rocks around their position exploded in fragments of stone and dust. Not kill shots. Demonstrations. Messages written in bullets that said, we see you, we have you, there is nowhere to run. Elena Cross did not freeze. Freezing got you killed. She moved, hard and fast and low, rolling left away from the impact points, bringing Hayes with her through pure momentum and the kind of trust that only came from training together until movement became instinct. They tumbled down the back slope of the outcrop, using gravity and darkness in the terrain they had memorized during setup. 8 positions. Mitchell had not been lying. She had counted 4 during observation. Had thought she was thorough, had believed her 3 days of watching had given her complete intelligence on the enemy disposition. She had been wrong, and in this business, being wrong meant being dead. They hit the bottom of the slope and kept moving, using a dry creek bed for cover, putting distance and obstacles between themselves and the shooters who now had their general location. Hayes was breathing hard beside her, controlled but urgent. The breathing of a man who understood they had just walked into a trap, and the only question was whether they could walk back out. "How many did you count?" Cross asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I saw muzzle flash from 3 positions we had not identified. Combined with the 4 we knew about, that makes 7. Mitchell makes 8. 8 professional snipers. Overlapping fields of fire. Coordinated response. Professional communications." This was not a hastily assembled security team. This was a deliberate, well-funded operation with resources that went beyond anything a criminal enterprise should have access to. Someone had paid a lot of money to protect whatever was happening in that compound. And someone had paid even more money to make sure nobody walked away who had seen it. They moved for 30 minutes in silence, putting 2 kilometers between themselves and the contact point, using every piece of terrain and concealment training had taught them. When they finally stopped, wedged into a narrow ravine that gave them cover from above and clear sight lines to their back trail, Hayes pulled out the encrypted tablet. The screen glowed softly in the darkness. He pulled up the mission file again, the one they had been given 96 hours ago, started digging deeper into the directory structure, looking for hidden files, buried documentation, anything that would explain what they had walked into. He found something, a communication log, encrypted traffic between the general who had briefed them and an unknown recipient. Time-stamped 48 hours before their insertion. Asset deployment approved. Primary observation team insertion at grid designated. QRF elements on standby for extraction contingency. Mission timeline 72 hours. Target photography authorization granted. Hayes scrolled down, found another message. This one sent 6 hours after their insertion. QRF-1 inserted rally point Echo 3. QRF-2 inserted rally point November 7. Both elements establish overwatch and await extraction signal. Cross read the messages twice. Let the implications settle. They sent backup. Without telling us, set up rally points we did not know about. Inserted teams after we were already on the ground. Hayes nodded, which means this was never about us successfully completing observation and extraction. This was about using us to identify targets. She understood. Understood it completely and hated it with a clarity that was almost physical. Someone had sent her into the field as bait, had used her presence to force the enemy's security to reveal themselves, had planned from the beginning that she would draw fire, would be hunted, would create the conditions for the QRF teams to identify and eliminate the hostile snipers. Except the plan had failed. The QRF teams were dead. 16 Americans executed in shallow graves while she had been lying in the mud watching a compound she did not understand. And now she and Hayes were alone, cut off, hunted by 8 professionals who knew the terrain and had the equipment and training to finish what the QRF teams could not. Hayes was still scrolling through the files. He stopped. His breathing changed, got very quiet in a way that had nothing to do with tactical discipline. "Cross, you need to see this." She looked at the screen. An email, sent from an address she did not recognize to the general who had briefed them. Time stamped 12 hours ago. Subject line, observation element status. The message was brief, 3 sentences that changed everything. Primary observation team has obtained target photography. Mission objective achieved. Authorize cleanup protocol and ensure no witnesses. Cleanup protocol, military euphemism for elimination. Someone at command level had authorized their deaths, had signed off on a mission designed from the beginning to be a one-way trip. Hayes looked at her. His face was invisible in the darkness, but she could hear the question in his silence. The disbelief, the kind of betrayal that went deeper than tactics or strategy, that cut to the fundamental trust a soldier had to have in their chain of command. Who sent that email, she asked. Unknown sender. Routed through 3 proxy servers, but it came from inside the Department of Defense network. Someone with high-level access. She processed this. Someone in DoD had ordered her death, had orchestrated this entire operation, had used her to photograph Volkov meeting with unknown Americans, and then planned to eliminate her to ensure the evidence never made it back. Except she was still alive, and she still had the photographs. And whoever had sent that email was about to learn that killing Elena Cross was significantly harder than signing a piece of paper. The tablet vibrated. Incoming message. Encrypted channel she did not recognize. The sender ID showed only a single initial. B. Bishop. She opened the message. Get out. Now. You are not supposed to see this. Mission was unauthorized. You are burned. Exfil yourself or you are dead. Unauthorized mission. Burned. The words sat heavy. Bishop did not use dramatic language, did not exaggerate. If he said the mission was unauthorized, it meant someone had run a black operation outside official channels. If he said she was burned, it meant her name was on a list somewhere that ended with a bullet. She typed a response. 8 snipers. Rally points compromised. Mitchell alive and hunting. Need extraction. The response came back in seconds. Mitchell working for Bellwether Group. Private contractors. Handle security for people. U.S. government cannot officially meet. You stumbled into something above your clearance. 8 snipers are cleanup crew. QRF teams sent to extract you, but someone leaked positions. Only way out is eliminate all 8 or they hunt you forever. Bellwether Group. She had heard the name. Private military contractor. Operated in gray zones where official military could not go. Hired former special operations personnel. Paid better than government. No oversight. No accountability. And they had hired Cole Mitchell, the best stalker she had ever seen, the man who had taught her everything she knew about hunting human targets, the man who was now using that knowledge to hunt her. Hayes read the message over her shoulder. So we kill all 8? She loaded a fresh magazine into her rifle. The metallic click was loud in the silence. Final. A sound that meant decisions had been made, and there was no going back. No, she said. I kill all 8. You relay my positions to Bishop. Create backup record. If I do not make it, someone knows what happened here. Hayes stared at her. We are partners. Partners means you trust me to do my job. Your job is documentation, mine is shooting. He started to argue. She cut him off with a look, the kind of look that Bishop had given her 100 times during training. The look that said, this is not negotiable. This is how it works. Fall in line or get out of the way. Hayes fell in line. Because that was what good soldiers did. They trusted their team leader even when the mission was impossible, especially then. Cross pulled up the tactical map on her tablet, marked the 4 known sniper positions from their original observation, added the 3 new positions revealed by muzzle flash. Mitchell made 8, but he was mobile, impossible to pin on a map. She studied the layout, the distances, the angles, the overlapping fields of fire. 7 fixed positions, 1 mobile hunter, standard overwatch pattern for high-value asset protection. 3 positions formed a triangle around the compound itself, close-range security. 4 positions on elevated terrain, long-range observation, and interdiction. Mitchell roamed between them, filling gaps and responding to threats. The triangle was the problem. Positions 2, 3, and 5. Mutual support distance, overlapping sight lines. You could not approach one without being seen by the others. Professional setup. Whoever had planned this knew what they were doing. But professional setups had a weakness. They relied on predictability, on targets behaving rationally, on enemies who followed doctrine and made sensible tactical decisions. Elena Cross had stopped making sensible decisions the moment she found out her own command had sent her here to die. She was going to do something Mitchell would not expect, something that violated every rule of engagement she had been taught, something that would make Bishop shake his head and call her reckless and stupid, and exactly the kind of thing that got good soldiers killed. She was going to start with the hardest target first. Position 7, the southernmost elevated position, 840 meters from the compound, isolated from mutual support. The shooter there would be confident in his distance, secure in his elevation, certain that nobody would be crazy enough to stalk him while 7 other snipers were active in the area. That confidence would kill him. She turned to Hayes. I need you to stay here. Monitor communications. Track my position via GPS beacon. If I go dark, you transmit everything to Bishop and you run. South. Do not stop. Do not come back for me. Just run. Hayes did not like it. She could see it in the set of his shoulders. But he nodded, because orders were orders, and she was right, and they both knew it. Cross-checked her rifle, checked her sidearm, checked the knife strap to her vest, checked everything twice because you only got one chance at this, and if you failed, the failure was permanent. Then she moved into the darkness. Stalking a position took time. You could not rush it, could not take shortcuts, had to move with the kind of patience that most people could not understand, the kind that required you to become part of the landscape, to breathe with the wind and move with the shadows and trust that stillness was a weapon as effective as any bullet. It took her 2 hours to cover 1 kilometer, 2 hours of crawling and waiting and moving inches at a time through terrain that wanted to betray you with every step. Loose rocks that could shift, dry leaves that could crackle, branches that could snap. She avoided them all. Position 7 came into view at 0300. The shooter was good, had constructed a hide that used natural terrain and artificial camouflage in equal measure. From any normal approach, he would be invisible. But Cross was not approaching normally. She was coming from below, using the drainage system and rock formations to mask her silhouette, moving through dead ground that his scope could not cover. She got to 300 meters, then 200, then 100. At 50 meters, she could see him clearly through her optics. Male, 30s maybe, professional kit, expensive rifle. He was scanning the valley below, watching for movement, confident in his security. He never looked behind him. Cross settled into position, controlled her breathing, found the perfect sight picture. Center mass, no wind at this range, no obstacles, just mechanics and geometry, and the absolute certainty that came from 10,000 hours of training. She fired. The suppressed report was almost nothing, a dry cough absorbed by the mountain. Through the scope, she watched position 7 fold. Watched the professional kit and expensive rifle become irrelevant. Watched confidence become stillness. 1 down, 7 remaining. She did not move from her position for 30 minutes. Waited to see if anyone had heard, if anyone would investigate. If the other positions had been monitoring position 7's status. Nothing. No radio chatter, no movement. The kill had been silent and invisible, and exactly what she needed it to be. She moved to position 4 next. Western Ridge, 760 meters from her current location. The approach was harder this time, more exposed, less cover. She had to time her movement with wind gusts that masked sound, had to use shadows that shifted with cloud cover, had to become something that was not quite human and not quite animal, but something in between that the human eye could not process even when looking directly at it. The movement took 90 minutes. Position 4 was in the middle of relocating when she arrived. Mitchell's voice had come over their communications network. She could hear it faintly on her scanner. Tighten perimeter. She is inside our net. The shooter at position 4 was following orders, abandoning his original hide, moving to a new position 50 meters north. The movement exposed him. Not completely, not recklessly, but for 8 seconds he was visible, silhouetted against the sky, a target. Cross was already in a position, already aimed, already waiting. She fired. Position 4 went down hard, 2 down, 6 remaining. The radio chatter increased after that. She could hear the alarm in their voices, even through the tactical flatness of professional communications. Position 4, report. Position 7, status check. No response. Because dead men do not answer radios. Mitchell's voice cut through the chatter. All positions collapsed to secondary defensive line. Mutual support protocols. Overlapping fields of fire. Nobody moves without visual confirmation from adjacent position. They were adapting, getting scared, making themselves harder to kill. Good. Scared people made mistakes. Positions 2, 3, and 5 formed their triangle, just as Cross had predicted. Textbook mutual support. Each position could see the others, could provide covering fire, could prevent exactly the kind of stalking approach she had used on positions 4 and 7. She could not take them individually, not without being seen, not without walking into a crossfire that would cut her apart before she got within 800 meters. So she would not take them individually. Cross circled wide, moved to the compound itself. The building was dark now. The meeting had ended hours ago. Volkov and his American contacts had left. Only the security remained, and the security was focused outward, watching for threats from the perimeter, not expecting anyone to be crazy enough to approach the compound itself while 8 snipers were active. She infiltrated through the southern fence line, moved through shadows between buildings, found what she was looking for in the third structure: fuel storage, diesel tanks for the backup generators, maintenance supplies, and 3 road flares left carelessly on a workbench. She improvised, took the flares, took a length of electrical wire, took a timing device from a motion sensor light, built something that was not sophisticated but did not need to be, just needed to burn. She planted the devices in 3 buildings, set the timers for 10 minutes, moved back to an elevated position 800 meters northeast with clear view of the triangle, and waited. The explosions were not large, just enough to ignite the fuel storage and create fire. The flames spread quickly through the wooden structures, fed by diesel and dry timber. Black smoke billowed into the night sky, visible for kilometers. The radio chatter went from professional to panicked in seconds. Fire. We have fire, unknown origin. The triangle shifted. All 3 positions turned their attention to the compound, trying to understand what was burning, trying to determine if it was an attack or accident or deliberate distraction. 15 seconds. That was the window Cross got. 15 seconds where positions 2, 3, and 5 were focused on the compound instead of their sectors. 15 seconds where they exposed themselves trying to see what was happening. She took position 5 first, the furthest from her position, 920 meters. Extreme range for the conditions. But she had the elevation, had the stable shooting platform, had done this shot 1,000 times in training. The bullet took 4 seconds to arrive. By the time it did, she was already transitioning to position 3. Fired again. Transitioned to position 2. Fired a 3rd time. 40 seconds total. 3 shots, 3 kills. Through the scope, she watched them drop. Watched the triangle collapse. Watched professional security turn into nothing because they had made the mistake of looking away for 15 seconds. 5 positions down, 3 remaining. Cross relocated immediately. Changed position before the remaining shooters could triangulate her muzzle flash. Moved 400 meters east to a rock outcrop that gave her different angles. Different fields of fire. The radio was chaos now. Multiple voices talking over each other. Panic and anger and the realization that they were being hunted by someone who was better than they were. Mitchell's voice cut through, calm, controlled, almost gentle. Position 6 through 8, report status. Position 6, northeast ridge, status green. Position 8, southwest approach, status green. Position 1, mobile, tracking, 3 left, plus Mitchell, 4 total. The odds were getting better, but 4 trained snipers was still 4 more than she wanted to face in open combat. Hayes's voice came through her earpiece. Encrypted channel only the 2 of them shared. Cross, I am reading increased thermal activity northeast ridge. Position 6 is moving. Looks like he is repositioning to counter your last location. She processed this. Position 6 had seen her muzzle flash, was trying to flank. Smart move. Professional response. But he was moving, and moving meant exposure. Give me his track, she said. Hayes relayed coordinates and heading, Cross did the math in her head, calculated where position 6 would be in 90 seconds if he maintained current speed and direction. Found a natural choke point, a narrow gap between 2 rock formations that any smart shooter would use for concealment. She moved to intercept, got there with 20 seconds to spare. Set up behind a fallen tree that gave her cover and a perfect view of the gap. Position 6 appeared right on schedule, moving carefully, weapon up, eyes scanning, professional in every way except one. He was wounded. She could see it now through the optics. Left shoulder, blood staining his tactical vest. Not a fresh wound, hours old, probably from the initial contact when they had fired warning shots at her position. He was hurt and trying to hide it, and that made him vulnerable. Cross put the crosshairs on him. 300 meters, clean shot, easy kill. Her finger rested on the trigger, and she thought about the QRF teams. 16 dead Americans who had been sent into these mountains without proper intelligence, without backup, without any chance of success. 16 soldiers who had trusted their chain of command and died for that trust. She thought about the general with no insignia, the orders that made no sense, the mission designed to fail. She thought about what Bishop had told her during training. You will face moments where you have to choose between following orders and following your conscience. The service teaches you to follow orders. I am teaching you to know when not to. Position 6 was 25 years old, maybe younger, following orders from men who paid him $50,000 to hold a position for 3 days. He had not killed the QRF teams. Mitchell had done that. This kid was just trying to survive his contract and go home. Cross lowered her rifle, stepped out from behind the tree, called out, "Drop your weapon, hands up. You are wounded and you are done." The kid froze, spun toward her voice, saw her standing there 50 meters away. Rifle pointed at the ground, not threatening, not aggressive, just present. He could have fired, should have fired. She was giving him the opening, but he did not, because he was wounded and scared and had just watched 5 of his teammates die in an hour and knew that she could have killed him from cover, but chose not to. He dropped the rifle, raised his hands. "You are Cross?" he asked, voice shaking slightly. Youth and fear making him honest in a way he probably was not supposed to be. She nodded. "Mitchell said you would not come this close. Said you always took the long shot." "Mitchell does not know me as well as he thinks." The kid hesitated, then spoke quickly. Nervous words tumbling out like he was afraid if he did not say them fast, they would stay locked inside forever. "Bellwether hired us. 50,000 for 3 days. Did not tell us we would be killing Americans. Did not tell us anything except hold positions and protect the compound. Mitchell did the other stuff. The QRF teams, not us. We just held positions." Hayes's voice in her ear. "Cross, he is enemy combatant. You cannot just let him go." She ignored Hayes, kept her eyes on the kid, saw the wound, saw the fear, saw someone who had made a mistake by taking money from the wrong people and was now paying for it with his life or his freedom or whatever piece of himself he would lose in the next 60 seconds. "What is your name?" she asked. "Stevens. Marcus Stevens." "How old are you, Marcus Stevens?" 23. Cross thought about being 23, thought about the choices she had made, the people she had trusted, the missions she had taken because someone in authority had told her they were important. "Leave," she said. "Walk south. Do not look back. If I see you again, you are dead. Understand?" Stevens stared at her, trying to determine if this was a trick, if she would shoot him the moment he turned around. She lowered her rifle completely, slung it across her back, showed him empty hands. "Go, now, before I change my mind." He went, stumbling down the slope, moving too fast, making noise, not caring anymore about tactical movement or proper procedure. Just running because he had been given a chance to live and was not going to waste it. Hayes came over the radio. "I do not understand what you just did. I let him go because he is not the enemy. Mitchell is." Stevens was a contractor following orders. She was a soldier who had learned that sometimes orders were wrong, that sometimes the people giving orders had agendas that had nothing to do with honor or service or protecting the country, that sometimes you had to make your own decisions about who deserved to die and who deserved to live. And Marcus Stevens, 23 years old and bleeding from a shoulder wound, did not deserve to die in these mountains for $50,000 and a lie. 3 positions left. Mitchell mobile. Position 8 unaccounted for. And somewhere in the darkness, the final piece of this puzzle waiting to be revealed. Cross moved to high ground, found an elevated position that gave her overview of the entire valley. The compound was still burning, flames lighting the night, smoke obscuring thermal signatures, chaos and confusion working in her favor. She scanned systematically, looking for position 8, the final fixed position, the one that had not fired, had not moved, had not revealed itself during the entire engagement. Hayes was doing the same from his position. Thermal scope active, searching, nothing. Position 8 was ghost. Either the shooter had abandoned position and fled, or they were better at concealment than anyone Cross had encountered. She was betting on the second option. Mitchell's voice came over the open frequency, broadcasting to everyone, to Cross, to Hayes, to position 8. "Impressive, Captain Cross. You just took 5 trained contractors in under 2 hours. But you missed something." She did not respond, waited. "Position 8 was always mine," a new voice said. Female, American, calm and professional and completely confident. Cross felt her blood freeze, felt recognition slam into her like physical impact. She knew that voice, had served with that voice, had trusted that voice with her life on 2 deployments and a dozen training rotations. Captain Sarah Voss, her former executive officer from the marksmanship unit, Reported killed in action 4 years ago. Iraq. Vehicle convoy hit by IED. 3 dead. No bodies recovered due to secondary explosion and fire. Declared dead after investigation concluded no survivors possible. Not dead. Here in these mountains. Hunting her. Sarah, Cross said, not a question. A statement. Hello, Elena. Been a long time. I saw the casualty report. You were killed. IED outside Mosul. That is what they wanted you to think. Voss's voice was relaxed, conversational. The voice of someone who had all the time in the world and no concern that the person they were talking to represented any threat at all. Truth is, I got recruited. Bellwether offered me triple what the Army was paying. Better equipment, better missions. And I got to choose my contracts, like this one. Cross-processed this. Voss had been an exceptional sniper. Top scores in advanced course. Tactical mind that could read terrain and predict enemy movement with uncanny accuracy. If she had spent 4 years working for Bellwether, training with their resources, taking contracts that let her hone skills without military restrictions, she would be better now than she had been then. And she had been very good then. Why, Cross asked. You had career, you had purpose. I had orders, Voss said. Orders from people who sent us to places we should not go to do things we should not do. And when it went wrong, they covered their asses and left us holding the bag. You remember, Ramadi. You remember what they made us do. Cross remembered. Ramadi had been bad. Civilian casualties. Questionable targeting. Rules of engagement that changed daily based on political pressure instead of tactical reality. She had filed reports, had questioned orders, had nearly been relieved for insubordination. Voss had filed nothing, had followed every order, had done what she was told without question or complaint. Or so Cross had thought. That is what this is about? Cross asked. Ramadi? Ramadi showed me the truth, Voss said, that we are tools, expendable, used by people who will never see combat and will never face consequences for the decisions they make. So I stopped being a tool, started being a professional. Get paid, get out, no loyalty except to the contract. And the contract here is to kill me. Silence on the line. Then Voss spoke again. Voice shifted, harder, colder. Contract is to protect the compound. Eliminate witnesses. You made yourself a witness when you photographed Volkov. Nothing personal, just business. Cross did not move, did not adjust position. Voss had not fired yet, which meant she did not have a clean shot, or she was waiting for something. Either way, movement would give away Cross's location. So here is the situation, Elena, Voss continued. I do not fire. Mitchell does not fire. You walk away. Leave the tablet with the photographs. Forget you saw Volkov. Forget this happened. Or I kill your spotter. I have had him in my scope this whole time. Not you, him. Hayes's voice came through the encrypted channel. Tight, controlled. But she could hear the edge of fear beneath the discipline. Cross, I have a laser dot on my chest. Voss had thermal optics. Elevated position. Had been watching the entire engagement. Had let Cross kill 5 contractors because it did not matter to her. They were competition, hired help, disposable. But Hayes was leverage, and Voss knew exactly how to use leverage. Tablet, now, or Hayes dies. Cross calculated. Distances, angles, response times. Voss had Hayes targeted. Mitchell was mobile somewhere in the valley. She could not save Hayes and fight both. If she gave up the tablet, she lost the only evidence that Volkov had met with Americans, lost the leverage that might keep her alive long enough to get extracted. But if she did not give up the tablet, Hayes died, and Hayes had followed her into this mess without question. Had trusted her when trust meant walking into a trap that would probably kill them both. She made the decision in 3 seconds. Hayes, on my mark, you move hard, left. Do not think, just move. Cross, I cannot see her position if I move. She will track me and shoot. Trust me. On my mark. She could hear his breathing over the radio. Fast, shallow. The breathing of a man trying to control fear and mostly succeeding, but not completely. Mark. Hayes moved. Rolled left. Hard and fast. The laser dot tracked him for half a second before Voss fired. The suppressed shot hit exactly where Hayes had been 1 second earlier. Impact on rock. Spray of fragments. Simultaneously, Cross identified Voss's muzzle flash. Northeast ridge. Elevated position 920 meters from her location. Behind the burning compound, using the smoke and flames to obscure her thermal signature. Cross fired. Once. Twice. 3 times, rapid succession, bracketing the position. Not precision shots, suppressive fire, making Voss move or die. Through the scope, she saw movement. Voss abandoning position, wounded maybe, or just forced to relocate. Not a kill, but good enough. Mitchell's voice on the radio, immediate, urgent. Bad move, Cross. Automatic weapons fire erupted from her left. Close. Too close. Mitchell had gotten within 200 meters without her knowing. Was suppressing her position with sustained fire, forcing her to stay down, giving Voss time to recover and relocate. Cross could not move, could not return fire, pinned. Hayes was pinned separately. She could hear him on the radio, breathing hard, asking for instructions she could not give because speaking would reveal her exact position, and Mitchell would adjust fire and that would be the end. They were separated, pinned down, outgunned, and then she heard it, a sound that changed everything. Helicopters, distant but getting closer. The distinctive thump of rotor blades cutting through mountain air. New voice on the radio, official military frequency, professional, authoritative. Unidentified shooters. This is Talon 6 inbound your position. 4 Blackhawks full assault element. You have 5 minutes to cease fire and surrender. JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command. Someone had called in the cavalry. Bishop's voice came through on the encrypted channel, the one only Cross could hear. Elena, it is me. I called them in. Told them you found Volkov meeting and mercenary cleanup crew. They are not happy, but they are coming. Hold for 5 minutes. She felt something loosen in her chest. Not relief exactly. Relief was for when you were safe. This was something else. Recognition that she might actually survive this. That backup was real and close, and loaded with enough firepower to end this nightmare. But 5 minutes was a long time when people were shooting at you. Mitchell's fire intensified. He knew the helicopters were coming, knew his window was closing, was trying to eliminate Cross before JSOC arrived. She could not stay pinned, could not wait for rescue, had to act. Cross made a decision that Bishop would have called insane. She moved toward Mitchell's fire, not away, toward, using the compound's burning buildings for cover, moving through smoke and flames and chaos. Closing distance, hunting the hunter. She covered 80 meters in 90 seconds. Fast movement, aggressive. Everything her training said not to do in a sniper engagement. But Mitchell was not expecting it. Nobody moved toward automatic weapons fire. Nobody closed distance when they should be evading. Nobody turned defense into offense in the middle of getting shot at. That was exactly why she did it. She spotted him through the smoke, 80 meters away, moving through a hallway in the compound, clearing rooms, looking for her. She could take him from behind, clean shot, easy kill. But she did not want easy, wanted him to know, wanted him to understand that everything he had taught her, she had learned, that the student had become something the teacher had not anticipated. Mitchell, he spun, weapon coming up, fast, professional, exactly as she knew he would be. She was faster. Her rifle was already aimed, already locked on target, finger on trigger. They stood 80 meters apart through smoke and firelight, both with rifles trained on each other, both with the skill to make the shot, both knowing that whoever fired first won and whoever hesitated died. You always were stubborn, Mitchell said, voice calm, almost admiring. You killed 16 Americans. QRF teams did nothing to you. They were in the way. Job was contain witnesses. They were witnesses. Cross felt rage, clean and cold and controlled. The kind of rage that did not cloud judgment, but sharpened it, made everything clear. That include me, especially you. Cannot have military snipers testifying about Volkov meetings. Bad for business. So Bellwether hired you to clean up. Hired all of us. Voss recruited me personally, said you might show up eventually. When we got word your unit was being deployed to observe this location, we knew. Set up the whole net. He paused, smiled. She could see it even at this distance. The smile of someone who enjoyed his work. But we underestimated you. 16 Americans dead, but you killed 5 of my team. Wounded Voss. Impressive. The helicopters were closer now, maybe 3 minutes out. She could hear JSOC operators on the radio coordinating approach vectors and breach points. Mitchell heard them too. Last chance Cross. Drop weapon. Walk away. I disappear. You tell JSOC you found Mercenary team and they scattered. Everyone goes home. Or we both fire. I am good, but you are better. Maybe you kill me. Maybe I kill you. Maybe we both die. Is that worth it? Cross remembered training with Mitchell, remembered him teaching the class about rules of engagement, about how the rules would get you killed, about how real snipers took the shot before lawyers approved it. She remembered reporting him, remembered the investigation, remembered his last words to her before he was dismissed. You will regret this, Kerr. When you are in the field and the rules do not save you. He had been wrong. The rules had not saved her, but they had kept her human, had kept her from becoming what he had become. A killer who worked for money instead of principle, who eliminated witnesses instead of protecting them. She lowered her rifle, slightly, enough to show intention without sacrificing readiness. You are right, rules matter. So here is mine. I do not execute unarmed prisoners. Drop your weapon. Surrender to JSOC. Face trial. Or I shoot you right now, your choice. Mitchell stared at her, confused, maybe even surprised. You will not do it, he said. You follow the rules too much. She fired, single shot, precise, controlled. The bullet hit Mitchell's rifle, destroyed the receiver, inches from his hands. He dropped it reflexively, stumbled back. Next one is center mass. Choose. He looked at her, looked at the rifle smoking at his feet, looked at the smoke and fire and the sound of helicopters getting closer. He raised his hands. JSOC hit the compound 40 seconds later. Blackhawks flaring overhead, ropes dropping, operators fast roping in full tactical kit. Professional, overwhelming, unstoppable. Cross called out, friendly, friendly. One hostile surrendering. They swarmed Mitchell, zip-tied him, searched him, secured him with the efficiency of people who had done this 1,000 times. Hayes emerged from the smoke, limping but alive. Blood on his sleeve but not his own. Just scratches from diving behind rocks when the shooting started. You good? She asked. Yeah. You? She nodded, did not trust herself to say more. The adrenaline was crashing now. 72 hours without sleep catching up. The weight of 5 kills and 1 mercy settling into her bones. A Master Chief approached. Face paint and night vision goggles. Voice amplified through comm system. Captain Cross? Need your statement. What the hell happened here? She gave him the summary. Short, factual, unauthorized mission. Bellwether contractors. Volkov meeting. 16 QRF personnel dead. 8 hostile snipers. 5 eliminated. 1 released. 2 in custody counting Mitchell. The Master Chief listened without interrupting. When she finished, he nodded. Slowly. Like he was processing information that did not quite fit the briefing he had received. We will need full debrief, but that can wait until you have slept. Medical will check you and your spotter. Then we extract. He turned to leave, stopped, turned back. Off the record, Captain. That was some of the best tactical work I have seen. Also some of the craziest, but mostly the best. He walked away before she could respond. Hayes sat down heavily on a piece of rubble, let out a breath that seemed to come from somewhere deep. So we lived. We lived. What happens now? Cross thought about the photographs, about Volkov, about the general with no insignia who had sent them here to die, about whoever had authorized cleanup protocol, about the corruption that went deep enough to sacrifice 16 soldiers. Now, she said, we find out who signed our death warrant, and we make sure they answer for it. The debrief happened 48 hours later. Fort Bragg, a room with no windows and recording equipment visible in every corner. Present were an Army colonel from CYD, a civilian from DOD Inspector General's office, and Bishop. Cross told them everything. The briefing, the mission, the jammed communications, the QRF teams, the 8 snipers, Mitchell, Voss, Bellwether, Volkov. She gave them the tablet with the photographs, the communication logs, the encrypted emails, everything Hayes had documented during the engagement. The colonel listened, took notes, asked precise questions about timelines and locations and actions taken. When she finished, he set down his pen. You are aware, Captain Cross, that this mission was never officially authorized, that there is no record of the briefing you describe, that the general you claim to have met with does not exist in any personnel database. She stared at him. Yes, sir. That is what unauthorized means. The civilian spoke up. Soft voice, careful words. What the colonel is saying is that officially this incident never happened. There is no record of Bellwether contractors operating in West Virginia. No record of QRF teams being deployed. No record of you being assigned to this mission. So you are calling me a liar? The civilian shook his head. We are explaining that there are elements of this situation that remain under investigation. That involved classified programs we cannot discuss. That required discretion. Cross felt Bishop tense beside her, felt him preparing to speak. She put a hand on his arm, stopped him. "Where's Mitchell?" she asked. "Where's Voss?" "In custody," the colonel said, "facing charges, espionage, murder, conspiracy. The list is long. They will be prosecuted to the fullest extent." "And Bellwether?" "Under federal investigation. Multiple agencies involved. It will take time." "And whoever authorized this mission? Whoever sent those QRF teams to die?" The room went quiet. The colonel and the civilian exchanged a look. A look that said, "There are things we cannot tell you, and you need to stop asking." Bishop spoke for the first time. His voice was hard, uncompromising. "My people were sent into the field without proper intelligence or support. 16 died, 2 barely survived. Someone will answer for that. If not in this room, then somewhere else. But someone will answer." The civilian nodded, slowly, like he was acknowledging a truth he wished was not true. "We understand your concern, Colonel Bishop, and we assure you the investigation is ongoing. But some answers take time. Some accountability happens in ways that cannot be made public." Cross stood up, had heard enough, had given them everything they needed, and received nothing but bureaucratic double talk in return. "Am I dismissed?" she asked. The colonel hesitated, then nodded. "You are dismissed, Captain. We will contact you if we need additional information." She walked to the door, stopped, turned back. "One more thing. Marcus Stevens, 23 years old, Bellwether contractor. Wounded. I released him during engagement. If you find him, I want him treated as witness, not combatant. He was following orders, did not kill anyone, just held a position." The colonel made a note. "We will take that into consideration." She left. Bishop followed. They walked in silence through the hallway, out of the building, into sunlight that felt wrong after 3 days in the mountains and 2 days in windowless rooms. "What now?" Bishop asked. Cross thought about it, about the mission that never officially happened, about the general who did not exist, about the photographs and evidence that would disappear into classified files and never be seen again, about Voss and Mitchell in custody facing trials that might never become public, about Bellwether under investigation by agencies that move slowly and carefully and might never actually shut them down, about 16 graves that would never have full explanation for the families left behind. "Now," she said, "I get back to work. Train the next generation. Make sure they are better prepared than I was, better equipped, better supported." Bishop nodded. "That is good. That is important. But I also make sure someone remembers, that someone knows what happened here, that the truth does not get buried completely." "How?" "I do not know yet, but I will figure it out." They reached Bishop's truck. He opened the door, paused. "You did good work out there, Elena. Better than good. You survived something designed to kill you. You eliminated professional threats. You brought your spotter home alive. That matters more than bureaucrats in windowless rooms want to admit." "Thank you, sir." "And the decision you made, letting Stevens go, that took courage, took the kind of moral clarity this job tries to beat out of people. Do not lose that, no matter what happens next." He drove away. Cross stood in the parking lot, alone, exhausted, alive. Her phone vibrated. Text message, unknown number. "New surveillance tasking available. Target Bellwether Group's secondary operation. Coordinates attached. Accept?" She stared at the message. Read it twice. Understood what it meant. Someone wanted her back in the field. Wanted to use what she had learned. Wanted her skills and experience for another mission. She should delete it. Should report it to CID. Should follow protocol and chain of command and all the rules that had kept her alive and human. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Delete or accept. The choice was hers. She made it. The Black Hawk lifted off at 0600. Elena Cross sat in the cargo bay watching West Virginia disappear beneath her. Smoke still rose from the compound. Black columns against gray dawn sky. From this altitude, the burning buildings looked small, insignificant, like someone had struck a match and walked away. 16 graves looked even smaller. The crew chief handed her a bottle of water. She drank it without tasting. Hayes sat across from her, shoulder bandaged where he had torn it diving behind rocks, face gray with exhaustion, eyes closed but not sleeping. You could not sleep after 3 days like that. The body would not allow it. Too much adrenaline, too much cortisol, too many decisions that could not be unmade. The master chief who had led the JSOC element sat beside the crew chief, still in full tactical kit, face paint smeared but not removed. He had been on the radio since they boarded. Quiet conversations with people Cross could not hear. Coordination and reporting in the machinery of military bureaucracy grinding into motion. He caught her looking, nodded once. Not friendly, not unfriendly. Professional acknowledgement between two people who had done hard things in hard places and understood that talking about it would not make it easier. The flight took 90 minutes. They landed at a base Cross did not recognize. No signs, no unit markings, just gray buildings and chain link fence and armed guards who checked IDs 3 times before allowing the helicopter past the perimeter. Medical was waiting. 2 doctors and 4 nurses who moved with the efficiency of people used to treating combat casualties. They separated Cross and Hayes, put them in different examination rooms, started checking vitals and wounds and asking questions Cross did not want to answer. How long since you slept? 96 hours. Any loss of consciousness? No. Blurred vision? No. Tremors? No. The doctor shined a light in her eyes, checked her pupils, made notes on a tablet, asked more questions about hydration and nutrition and whether she had experienced any psychological symptoms. Intrusive thoughts, flashbacks, dissociation. Cross answered honestly. Yes to intrusive thoughts. No to flashbacks. No to dissociation. The thoughts were just facts running in loops. 5 men dead, 1 wounded and released, 2 in custody, 16 graves. Numbers that added and subtracted and never quite balanced no matter how many times she ran the calculation. The doctor prescribed sleep medication. Cross refused. Prescribed anti-anxiety medication. Cross refused that too. The doctor looked at her with the expression medical personnel got when dealing with soldiers who thought they could willpower their way through biochemistry. You need rest, Captain. Real rest. Your body has been running on adrenaline for 4 days. When the adrenaline stops, your system is going to crash. Better to manage that crash with medication than let it happen uncontrolled. I will sleep when I am ready. The doctor made a note, discharged her with instructions to report back in 24 hours for follow-up examination. Cross found Hayes in the hallway. He looked better. The color had returned to his face. Someone had given him clean utilities and hot coffee. He was standing instead of sitting, which meant his body had decided it was going to keep functioning. They good to you? She asked. Stitches and antibiotics. You? Same minus the stitches. They stood in the hallway and did not talk about what came next because neither of them knew. Eventually, a lieutenant appeared and told them they were being moved to temporary quarters. Debriefing would begin at 1400 hours. They should eat, sleep if possible, prepare for a long afternoon. The quarters were standard, 2 rooms, 2 beds, shared bathroom, no windows. Cross lay down on the bed and stared at the ceiling and thought about closing her eyes, about letting the exhaustion win, about surrendering to sleep. She could not do it. Every time she started to drift, she saw Mitchell standing in the smoke, saw Voss's laser dot on Hayes' chest, saw the kid named Stevens running down the mountain with his hands empty and his life intact, saw the general with no insignia giving her coordinates and orders that made no sense. At 1300, she gave up, showered, changed into the fresh utilities someone had left folded on a chair, made herself eat something from the commissary even though food tasted like cardboard. Hayes found her there, sat down across from her without asking. They ate in silence for 10 minutes. You should have killed him, Hayes said finally. Stevens, you should have taken the shot. Maybe. No, maybe. He was enemy combatant, armed, on hostile ground. Rules of engagement were clear. Rules of engagement were written by people who were not there, who did not see him, who did not know he was 23 and bleeding and scared. Hayes shook his head. You are going to second-guess yourself into a court-martial. Probably. But I will do it knowing I made the right call. How do you know it was right? Because he is alive, and I can live with that. If I had killed him, I would spend the rest of my life wondering if I had to. Wondering is worse than any court-martial. Hayes thought about that, nodded slowly. I guess I can understand that. The debriefing room was exactly what Cross expected. Long table, recording equipment, 3 people in civilian clothes who introduced themselves with titles but no names. One from OD and Inspector General, one from Army CID, one from an agency that was not specified. Bishop was there, sitting in the corner, not part of the panel, just present. His face was unreadable, but Cross knew him well enough to read the tension in his shoulders, the way he held himself. Bishop was angry about something and working very hard to stay professional. Cross and Hayes sat across from the panel. The recording equipment activated. Red lights. Soft hum. The woman from ODIG spoke first. Captain Cross. Staff Sergeant Hayes, thank you for your cooperation. We understand you have been through a difficult experience. We will try to make this as brief as possible. She opened a folder, pulled out photographs, slid them across the table. Do you recognize these individuals? Cross looked at the photos. Yuri Volkov, 3 American men in expensive suits, 4 contractors in tactical gear. Mitchell, Voss. Yes, can you identify them? Cross pointed to each photo, named them, gave descriptions of where and when she had observed them, what they had been doing, what equipment they carried. The DoD investigator took notes, asked follow-up questions about timelines and locations, about the photographs Hayes had taken, about the encrypted communications they had intercepted. Then she asked the question Cross had been waiting for. Captain, can you describe the individual who briefed you on this mission? General, no name given, no insignia, gray hair, 60s, scar on left hand, spoke with Midwest accent. Briefing conducted at Joint Base Andrews 96 hours prior to insertion. The investigator exchanged a look with the man from CID, a look that said, this is complicated and we need to be very careful how we handle it. Captain Cross, there is no record of you receiving such a briefing. No record of a general matching that description, conducting operations at Joint Base Andrews. No record of this mission being authorized through official channels. Cross felt something cold settle in her stomach. So you are saying I made it up. We are saying the mission you described was not officially sanctioned, that the individual you met with may have been operating outside proper authority, that this entire operation exists in a legal gray area we are still trying to understand. Bishop spoke from the corner. His voice was quiet but carried weight. Let me make sure I understand. You are telling a decorated officer that she imagined a briefing, that she imagined coordinates and orders, that she just happened to stumble into the middle of an arms dealer meeting protected by 8 professional contractors, that all of this was coincidence. The investigator turned to him. Colonel Bishop, we understand your concern, but you must understand the complexity of the situation. There are classified programs involved, ongoing operations we cannot discuss, elements that require discretion. Discretion is another word for cover-up. The man from CID leaned forward. Colonel, we are trying to determine what happened and who is responsible. That process takes time, requires us to follow proper procedures. We cannot simply make accusations without evidence. You have evidence, you have photographs, you have communication logs, you have 2 prisoners who can testify. What more do you need? Context, the unspecified agency representative said. This was her first time speaking. Her voice was measured, professional, the voice of someone used to delivering bad news without emotion. What we need is context, understanding of how these events connect to larger operations, how they impact ongoing national security interests, how they affect relationships with allied and adversary nations. She paused, let the words settle. What we need is patience while we investigate, and discretion from everyone involved, including Captain Cross and Staff Sergeant Hayes. Cross understood. They were being told to stay quiet, to let the investigation happen behind closed doors, to trust that justice would be served even if they never saw it. Where is Mitchell, she asked. Where is Voss? In custody, facing charges. The trials will be handled through military justice system. Public trials? That has not been determined. Will I be called to testify? That has not been determined either. What has been determined? Silence. The 3 investigators looked at each other, some kind of unspoken communication passing between them. Finally, the DoD representative spoke. What has been determined is that this incident is classified at the highest levels. That discussion of these events outside proper channels will result in prosecution. That both of you will sign non-disclosure agreements acknowledging your understanding of these restrictions. She slid 2 documents across the table. Dense legal text, paragraphs about national security and penalties for unauthorized disclosure. Cross read it, every word, looking for loopholes, for exceptions, for any way to make sure the truth did not get buried completely. She found nothing. The document was airtight, comprehensive, designed by lawyers who had spent careers learning how to silence people legally. Hayes signed in without reading, just picked up the pen and wrote his name. Cross looked at him. He shrugged. What choice do we have? She signed because he was right. They had no choice, no leverage, no power except the truth, and the truth was classified. The debriefing continued for 3 more hours. Questions about tactics and timelines, about decisions made and shots taken, about why she had released Stevens instead of eliminating him. She explained. The investigators took notes, made no judgment, asked more questions. When it ended, they were told to remain on base for 72 hours. Additional interviews might be necessary. Medical monitoring was mandatory. They were not to discuss the events with anyone, not to make phone calls outside approved channels, not to access internet or personal email. They were prisoners, politely detained, held without charges while people in windowless rooms decided what to do with them. Bishop followed Cross out of the debriefing room, caught up with her in the hallway, put a hand on her shoulder. Walk with me. They went outside, found a spot near the fence line where nobody could hear them without being obvious about listening. Bishop lit a cigarette, offered her one. She declined. He smoked and looked at the fence and did not speak for a full minute. This is bullshit, he said finally. Yes, sir. 16 dead Americans, a sanctioned arms dealer meeting with people who should not be meeting with him, professional contractors hired to protect that meeting and eliminate witnesses. And they want to classify it, bury it, pretend it never happened. That seems to be the plan. Bishop took a long drag, exhaled smoke. You know what the worst part is? What? They are going to get away with it. Whoever authorized this mission, whoever sent those QRF teams to Shah, whoever decided you were expendable, they are going to walk away clean. Maybe, or maybe the investigation finds something. You believe that? Cross thought about the 3 investigators, the careful questions, the legal documents, the classified designations. She thought about how power worked in places like Washington, how mistakes got buried, how accountability became optional when the people making mistakes had enough rank and connections. No, she said, I do not believe that. Bishop took another drag, let the smoke out slowly. I got word this morning, he said. Unofficial channels. The general you described, gray hair, scar on left hand, Midwest accent. 3 people matched that description at the rank and clearance level required to organize something like this. 3? All 3 are being investigated. Quietly. Financial records, travel logs, communications. But here's the problem. All 3 have friends, high-level friends, friends who do not want scandals, who do not want public trials, who want this to disappear. So nothing happens. Bishop shook his head. I did not say nothing happens. I said it happens quietly. One of those 3 generals is going to retire early. Medical reasons, probably. Another is going to lose clearances. Get reassigned to a desk job so far from operations, he might as well be civilian. The 3rd might actually face charges. Might. If the evidence is strong enough and his friends are weak enough. That is not justice. No. But it is accountability. It is the best we are going to get in a system designed to protect people at that level. Cross felt something hard settle in her chest, anger and resignation mixed together. The knowledge that Bishop was right and hating that he was right. What about Voss and Mitchell? They face real consequences. Espionage, murder, conspiracy to commit treason. They are contractors, disposable. Nobody protects contractors. They will get trials, probably not public, probably classified courtrooms and sealed records, but they will go to prison for a long time. And the 16 QRF soldiers? Their families will get the truth, eventually, not today, not this year, but eventually someone will declassify enough of the file that the families can understand what happened, that their people died doing their jobs, that they were betrayed by someone who should have protected them. That is not much, but it is something. It is not enough. Bishop dropped the cigarette, ground it out, looked at her with eyes that had seen this before, that knew how these things ended. It never is, he said. So what do? I do my job. Train the next generation. Make sure they are better prepared than I was. That is good. That is important. But is it enough? She did not have an answer. Bishop finished his cigarette, dropped it, ground it out under his boot. I put in a request, he said, to have you assigned to the marksmanship unit as an instructor. You would be good at it. You have the experience, the tactical knowledge, the ability to teach people not just how to shoot, but how to think. That would be a step down from command. Command is overrated. You spend more time filling out paperwork than doing actual work. Teaching is where you make a difference, where you shape people who will be doing this job for the next 20 years. Cross considered it, Thought about standing in front of a class, sharing what she had learned, making sure the next Elena Cross or David Hayes went into the field with better intelligence and support. Thought about trying to prevent what had happened to her from happening to someone else. I would like that, she said. If the assignment comes through, it will come through. I made sure of that. How? Bishop smiled. Thin, hard. The smile of someone who had been in the system long enough to know how it worked and how to make it work for him. I told them you were a potential security risk, that you were angry about the mission, that you needed to be kept busy and supervised, that the best way to ensure your discretion was to give you a job you cared about and keep you under observation. So you lied. I told them what they needed to hear to approve the assignment. Whether that is lying depends on your definition. Thank you, sir. Do not thank me yet. Teaching is harder than you think. You have to care about people who will make mistakes, who will not listen, who will get themselves killed despite your best efforts. You have to watch them walk into danger and trust that you prepared them well enough to survive. I think I can handle that. I know you can. That is why I requested you. Hayes came looking for her an hour later, found her in her quarters staring at the wall, not thinking, just existing in that empty space between missions where your mind has not caught up with your body and you feel disconnected from everything. They are releasing me, he said. When? Tomorrow morning. Medical cleared me. Debriefing is complete. They are transferring me back to my unit. Cross nodded. That is good. You should get back to normal routine. Hayes sat on the edge of the other bed, looked at his hands, big hands, steady, the hands of someone who could hold binoculars for hours without tremor, who could call wind and range and corrections without error. I put in for transfer, he said. FBI hostage rescue team. They have an opening for a precision marksman. Better pay, better equipment, and no more missions where my own command tries to get me killed. Cross understood. Hayes had been a good soldier, had followed orders, had trusted the system, and the system had sent him into mountains to die without proper intelligence or support. Some things you could not come back from. Some betrayals cut too deep. You will be good at that, she said. HRT needs people who can think under pressure, who can make hard calls. You proved you can do that. He nodded, did not look convinced, stood up to leave, stopped at the door. What you did back there, letting Stevens go, that took guts, took the kind of judgment they do not teach in schools. I thought you were wrong, thought you were being soft, but I have been thinking about it, and maybe you were right. Maybe knowing when not to kill is as important as knowing when to kill. Maybe, Cross said. Anyway, I wanted to say that, and to say it has been an honor working with you, even for just 3 days, even when those 3 days were hell. He left before she could respond. Cross sat alone in the empty room and thought about partnerships, about trust built in 72 hours, about how Hayes had followed her into an impossible situation and come out alive because he had believed she knew what she was doing, about how that trust was earned and what it cost to maintain it. The 72 hours passed slowly. Medical checks every 12 hours. Additional interviews with investigators who asked the same questions in different ways, looking for inconsistencies. Hours of sitting in a room with nothing to do except think. On the third day, Bishop found her in the commissary, sat down with 2 cups of coffee, slid one across to her. It is done, he said. Transfer approved. You report to Fort Benning next month. Instructor position at the sniper school, teaching advanced courses to candidates who have already qualified. The best of the best. Cross wrapped her hands around the coffee cup, felt the warmth, felt something settle in her chest that might have been relief, or might have been resignation, or might have been both. What about the investigation? Ongoing. No timeline for completion. Mitchell and Voss are being held at a facility I cannot name. Their trials will happen eventually. Whether they will be public is still being determined. And the general who briefed me? Bishop set on his body, looked at her directly. They identified him. Took 2 weeks, but they narrowed it to one of the 3. Retired 2-star, connections to defense contractors. Financial irregularities going back 5 years. He is being offered a deal. Early retirement. Full pension. No charges. In exchange for cooperation and silence. Cross felt rage, clean and cold. That is it? He kills 16 people and gets to retire with full pension? He did not pull the trigger. He authorized a mission that went wrong. In the eyes of the law, that is different. In the eyes of politics, it is even more different. His friends are powerful. His cooperation is valuable. And prosecuting a general for a classified operation that officially never happened is complicated. So he walks. Bishop nodded. He walks. But everyone who matters will know. His career is over. His reputation is destroyed. He will never work in defense again. Never sit on a board. Never consult. He is finished. Just not in the way you want him to be finished. It is not enough. No, it is not. But it is what we have. Cross thought about 16 graves, about QRF soldiers who had families and lives and futures that ended in West Virginia mountains because someone thought an arms dealer meeting was more important than American lives. Thought about justice and accountability and how the system protected people who should not be protected. What about the others? The Americans meeting with Volkov, still under investigation. 3 civilians, 2 with connections to defense contractors, 1 to State Department, all 3 claiming they were there for legitimate intelligence gathering. All 3 lawyered up. All 3 likely to walk with wrist slaps and destroyed careers but no prison time. Because the system protects its own. Because the system protects its own, Bishop agreed. 6 months later, Elena Cross stood at the front of a classroom at Fort Benning watching 24 students settle into their seats. Advanced Sniper Course, Week 7. The survivors. The ones who had made it through initial qualification and were now learning the skills that separated good shooters from exceptional ones. She looked at their faces. Young, eager, confident in the way that only people who had never faced real failure could be confident. Some of them would wash out. Statistics said 30%. Some would make it through and become competent snipers who followed doctrine and hit targets and did their jobs well. And maybe 1 or 2 would become something more. Would develop the judgment and instinct and moral clarity to make hard decisions in impossible situations. Those were the ones she was here for. Today we are going to talk about something they do not put in the manual, she said. About the moment when you have perfect shot, perfect conditions, perfect target, and you choose not to fire. The students looked confused. One raised his hand, a corporal from Texas with high scores and cocky attitude. Ma'am, why would we not take a perfect shot? Because sometimes the perfect shot is the wrong decision. Sometimes the target is not what you think it is. Sometimes the mission has changed and nobody told you. Sometimes you have to decide if following orders is more important than doing what is right. She paused. Let that sink in. You are going to face that moment. Maybe not today, maybe not this year, but eventually you will have crosshairs on a target and a decision to make and no time to call higher for guidance. In that moment, you need to know what you stand for. Need to know the difference between a soldier and a killer. The classroom was quiet. Even the cocky corporal was listening. Let me tell you about a mission, Cross said. About a compound in the mountains. About orders that did not make sense. About 8 hostile snipers and 16 friendly casualties. About a kid named Stevens who was in the wrong place at the wrong time working for the wrong people. She told them the story, not all of it, not the classified parts, but enough to make them understand that real operations were messy. That intelligence was incomplete, that sometimes you were bait and sometimes you were abandoned and sometimes the only person you could trust was yourself. She told them about letting Stevens go, about the choice between following rules of engagement and following conscience, about how she had to live with that decision every day since. When she finished, the classroom was silent, the students looking at her differently, not as an instructor reciting doctrine, but as someone who had been there. Who had faced the impossible and survived. The corporal raised his hand again. Ma'am, how do you know you made the right call? I do not know. Not for certain, but I know I can live with the decision. If I had killed him, I would spend every day wondering if I had to. Wondering is worse than any doubt. She dismissed the class. They filed out quietly, thoughtful, exactly what she wanted. Her phone vibrated as she was cleaning up the classroom. Text message, unknown number. Surveillance tasking available. Bellwether secondary operation. Coordinates attached. Authorized through proper channels this time. Interested? Cross stared at the message. Read it twice, 3 times. Bellwether, the organization that had hired Mitchell and Voss, that had killed 16 Americans, that was supposedly under investigation. Someone wanted her back in the field, wanted to use her experience against the people who had tried to kill her, wanted revenge disguised as justice. She should delete it, should report it to Bishop, should follow proper channels and let the investigation run its course. Her thumb hovered over the delete button. Thought about the general with no insignia who had taken early retirement with full pension. about trials that might never happen, about accountability that came quietly if it came at all. Thought about 16 graves in West Virginia mountains. Thought about teaching students in a classroom versus hunting the people who had put her in those mountains. She made her decision, typed a response, 3 words, send the details, hit send before she could second guess. The response came back in 30 seconds. Coordinates, target description, mission timeline, and a note at the bottom. This one is official, approved at highest levels. Your choice to accept. No judgment either way. Cross-read the details. Bellwether Safe House, 3 contractors, low-risk surveillance, simple observation mission. Exactly like the last one had been described. She almost laughed, almost deleted the entire conversation, almost walked away. But something stopped her. Some part of her that was not satisfied with teaching, that needed to finish what had started in those mountains, that wanted to look Mitchell in the eye again and tell him she was still hunting. She saved the coordinates, closed the message, put the phone in her pocket, walked out of the classroom and across the base to Bishop's office, found him at his desk buried in paperwork. He looked up when she entered. "I need to talk to you about something," she said. He gestured to a chair. She sat, pulled out her phone, showed him the message. Bishop read it. His expression did not change. When he finished, he handed the phone back. "What are you going to do?" "I do not know yet. That is why I am here, to ask what you would do." Bishop leaned back in his chair, steepled his fingers, looked at her with eyes that had seen every variation of this conversation over 3 decades. "What I would do is irrelevant. This is your choice, your career, your life. I need advice." "Then here is my advice. You are a good teacher. You are making a difference here, shaping people who will carry forward what you taught them. That matters. That has value." He paused. "But I also know you. Know that teaching will never be enough. That you need to be in the field, need to finish what was started, need to prove to yourself that you can face that darkness again and come out whole. So which is more important? Both are important. The question is which one you need more right now." Cross thought about the classroom, about the students listening to her story, about the corporal from Texas asking how she knew she made the right call. Thought about the coordinates on her phone, about bellwether contractors who were still operating, who might be planning another meeting, another mission, another betrayal. "If I go," she said, "if I accept this mission, can I come back? Can I still teach?" Bishop nodded. "Special assignment, temporary duty. You would be gone for a few weeks, maybe a month, then back here to finish the course rotation. And if something goes wrong, then I will make sure your students know why you left. Know that you were doing something that mattered. Know that some teachers lead from the front." Cross stood up, extended her hand. Bishop shook it. "Thank you, sir, for everything, for pulling strings to get me this position, for telling me the truth when I needed it, for trusting me to make my own decisions. You earned that trust multiple times over. Do not make me regret it. I will try not to." She left his office, walked across the base to her quarters, sat on the bed and pulled out her phone. Looked at the coordinates again, at the mission details, at the choice she had to make. Thought about what Bishop had said, about teaching versus doing, about finishing what was started, about needing to face darkness. Made her decision. Typed a response to the unknown number. The response was 7 words, enough to change everything or nothing depending on how you read them. She hit send, turned off the phone, lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. In 3 days, she would stand in front of her students again, would teach them about wind calls and range estimation and the 100 small details that separated good shooting from great shooting. Would teach them about judgment and conscience and knowing when not to pull the trigger. Would prepare them for a world where missions fell apart and orders did not make sense. And sometimes you had to trust yourself more than you trusted the chain of command. Would give them what Bishop had given her. The tools to survive, the wisdom to adapt, the strength to choose. That was enough. That was everything. Whatever happened with Bellwether, whatever came next, she had done the important work, had shaped the next generation, had made sure her legacy was people, not missions. The rest was just details. She closed her eyes, let exhaustion finally win, let sleep come on its own terms without medication or force of will. Dreamed about mountains and compounds and choices made in darkness. Dreamed about a kid named Stevens running toward freedom. Dreamed about 16 graves that might someday have the truth written on their markers. Dreamed about a classroom full of students who would carry forward what she taught them into a world that needed soldiers who could think as well as shoot. Woke 6 hours later feeling more rested than she had in 6 months. Made coffee, showered, dressed in utilities, prepared for another day of teaching. Checked her phone, one new message from the unknown number, 2 words. She read them, smiled, deleted the conversation, erased the coordinates, wiped the evidence. Walked out into Georgia morning sunlight feeling lighter than she had felt since those mountains. The choice was made, the answer was sent, the future was decided. And whatever came next, she would face it the way she had faced everything else, with skill and judgment and the absolute certainty that came from knowing who she was and what she stood for. Elena Cross was a soldier, a teacher, a sniper who knew when to fire and when to hold. And that was enough. The message had asked one question. Are you ready? She had answered with 2 words. Always ready, because that was the truth. That was what they had trained her to be, what Bishop had shaped her into, what the mountains had proven. Always ready for whatever came next. Always ready to serve. Always ready to teach. Always ready to fight. The phone stayed off. The classroom waited. The students needed her more than any mission ever would. And somewhere in a facility whose name she would never know, Mitchell and Voss sat in cells and wondered how a mission they thought they controlled had ended with them in chains and Elena Cross free. Wondered how the hunter had become the hunted. Wondered how the student had surpassed the teacher. They would have a long time to wonder. Cross had work to do. Captain Cross faced a choice many of you might recognize. Follow the orders that would get her killed, or trust her training and judgment. She chose to survive. But here's what stayed with me. She let that 23-year-old contractor walk away. Not because he deserved mercy, because she refused to become what the system tried to make her. For those of you who've served, would you have taken that shot? Or does experience teach you that some fights aren't worth your soul? Drop your thoughts below. And if this story earned your time, there are more waiting. Subscribe so you don't miss them.